and there is continuity in the work that has been begun. When he touched on the women that have been elected and encouraged women in leadership, it gave me a lot of hope, putting into consideration the challenges that women go through as they go through elections, as they give themselves for leadership positions, the challenges they face from the people and from their counterparts. Madam Speaker, this shows that our president is ready to work with women in a very special way, such that come 2027, we'll have even more women. Mine is just to encourage women with dreams to be leaders, with dreams to be one day members of parliament in whatever capacity. I just want to encourage them, because it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of prayers, and it takes a lot of determination. You cannot just sit and say, yes, the government is for us as women, but I just want to encourage women like me to work hard, to fight for their space, and to be there so that they can be elected by their constituencies. Madam Speaker, again, the President touched on the peaceful election, and that gave me a lot of hope, because the issue of ethnicity that has always been there is no longer a problem to us. 2022, we went through a lot of dynamics. Kenyans united, Kenyans elected the leaders they wanted without putting into consideration clanism and ethnicity. This is something that has affected many parts of the country, and especially where I come from, though not in election time particularly, but it is something that has dragged Kenya in a big way. It has hindered development. It has stopped us from electing visionary and capable leaders. But this time round, Kenyans have demonstrated a different way of dealing with that, and it gives us hope that soon and very soon we will get out of this challenge. I congratulate our country and the citizens for remaining peaceful throughout election time, and also for bearing in mind what unites our country. We are together, we are one nation, we will live together. It has given us a good example of taking care of each other and being your brother's keeper. His Excellency has assured us that in his administration will be open, transparent, and will rely on oversight. Madam Speaker, giving assurance to Kenyans that his administration will be open enough and transparent, whereby we know our past experience. This will give every Kenyan the confidence to give their best to the nation. We know that Kenyans are very hardworking people, and everything depends on the leader. By the fact that he has given us the assurance, I'm sure this will encourage the 30 million, the 40 million Kenyans who are working hard every day to feed their families, to even go extra mile so that our country can be one of the best. He also, in his speech, touched on the idea of CS to explain policy and answer questions on the floor of the House to enhance accountability. This is one of the best things that can happen, and it gives us good working relationship. Accountability is one thing that has been missing in our country, and by doing this, we'll be able to feed the country well with information, as information is power. Every citizen will be following what is happening, and as questions will be answered on this floor, in this floor, members will know that the members of the parliament are doing their work, and the cabinet secretaries are also doing their work. With that good representation, then we are only assured of good progress. Madam Speaker, the President also spoke about affordable credit, which makes a huge difference in the rate of business growth. Access to affordable credit is what Kenyans need today. Families have lost their businesses since COVID-19 came. Families have lost their businesses because of poor economy. Families have faced financial challenges and constraints. Many have committed suicide. Many people are depressed. People have developed terminal illnesses, and they are not able to sustain their families. This has affected Kenyans in a very negative way. The speech gave a lot of hope, and especially the idea of affordable credit makes a huge difference, as he says, and Kenyans will be revived. People will be able to revive their businesses. People will be able to enhance their businesses and start their businesses and move on. Madam Speaker, there is no better gift to our citizens than this. In addition to that, he mentioned about the 50 billion Hustler Fund per year. This is a big relief. As we know, poverty is one thing that has affected our country for many years. By doing this,
Honorable Member for Sabatia constituency. Honorable Member, oh, he's there, okay.
Thank you, Madam.
Member for Sabatia, I think you better go to the back. There seems to be a mic working.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity that you've granted me to address this House for the first time. And before I say a few words, I want to thank the President of the Republic of Kenya and his deputy for being elected in those offices. I also want to thank the Speaker, the Honorable Moses Wetangula, and you, Madam Speaker, Madam Boss Sholei, for being elected by this House as the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker. I also want to thank the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the Chief Cabinet Secretary of the Republic of Kenya, who happens to be a resident of Sabatia constituency where I represent. He assisted me so much, and I must say thank you to him for the support that he gave me throughout the campaign period. I also want to thank Sabatia people for the opportunity that they have given me to serve them as their area MP for the next 5 years. We have 6 wards in Sabatia, which I would like to name with speed. Liaduyo Izava Ward, where I come from, Chavakali Ward, Sabatia West Ward, Busali Ward, Wodanga Ward, North Maragoli Ward. Those are 6 wards. The people from these wards overwhelmingly supported me, and they voted me in as their MP with the highest number of votes, and I would like to thank them so much. I also want to thank my woman rep, Madam Beatrice Sadagala, and the outgoing MP, the MP who was there before me, Alfred Agoi, for the support they accorded me. I must thank them. I also want to thank my opponents, whom we battled so much. They gave me the experience that I required to emerge the winner, and I also must thank them because they were worthy opponents, and I must thank them for being there to help me get to where I am. The people of Sabatia have a lot of problems, and just to name but a few, we have youth unemployment, which is hitting hard in that constituency, and I must say we must do something to ensure that we are rectifying the situation. We have poor road networks, which is also making connectivity in the villages and to the nearby constituencies a very big problem. So we will be seeking to push this agenda through this House to ensure that we have good roads through the CDF that we are hoping will be reinstated very soon. We have bursary issue, where in the past we have been seeing discrimination in the issue of bursaries, and we are seeking to ensure that once CDF is reinstated, we will do equitable sharing of the bursaries based on the need basis. We also have the housing problem in Sabatia, where many people are living in abject poverty that they cannot put up homes for themselves. We have leaking roofs, which in the past we have tried to work on a few, and we are seeking to continue doing the same through the programs that we are going to set in the nearby future. Touching on the President's speech, I singled out one element to do with the Hustlers Fund. The President said we will capitalize on existing technologies both in the public and private sector in distribution of the Hustler Fund. I'm urging the people and especially the youth in Sabatia to tap into this by going for ICT training so that they can be part of the Hustler Fund distribution, which I'm very sure is going to work well for them. I also want to commend the President for proposing transformation of KRA from Kenya Revenue Authority to Kenya Revenue Service in a bid to make it a people's friendly. One thing is that when we are paid, especially for those people who are earning salary, a big percentage of that money goes to KRA through pay, and so this one is supposed to, the change of name from Kenya Revenue Authority to Kenya Revenue Service is supposed to make KRA a friendly partner to the people who are paying taxes through the same organization. Far from that, security has been a problem in our home constituency of Sabatia, where there are so many cases of rising cases of insecurity, and this, the security organization in Sabatia, our police stations are understaffed. So we'll be seeking maybe through this House, when the standing orders are amended to allow cabinet secretaries appear before Parliament to answer to questions, we will be putting questions to the cabinet secretary in charge of internal security to ensure that our police stations within and across Sabatia constituency are well equipped and well staffed to ensure that we are increasing the security situation in our constituency. Far from that, the President also touched on subsidizing fertilizer and bringing the prices down to 3,500 shillings. I want to report through this House to the people of Sabatia that our fertilizer was received at the Chavakali NCPB depot, and the farmers should be ready to purchase the same fertilizer at that rate through that depot. I want to thank the President so much for the second time for having stood with some of us to ensure that we are making it to this House. Lastly, it was supposed to be the first, but I thought it should come last. I want to thank God Almighty who made all of us come to this House, and I'll seek all MPs who have been elected for the first time and those who are in, let us stand together. Let us ensure that we are working for our people. And I'm very sure my neighbors in Muhaya, Amisi, Vihiga, and Luanda will stand with me as I will stand with them to ensure that we are addressing the issues surrounding our constituencies in a good way to make our county of Vihiga a better place than we found it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Malava, who will be then followed by a member for Migori County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I register my thanks to the President's speech, I would like to congratulate you for being elected as a Deputy Speaker and Moses Masika Wetangula as Speaker of this House. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank the people of Malava for electing me the third time as their MP. I think it's because of what I did for them. They had trust in me, and I want to assure them that this time again, I'll serve them so diligently to the levels that will satisfy them as their MP. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank our President, William Samoei Ruto, for being elected as our President, and most importantly, for him proving that he's a honest person, he's a trustful person, because as I speak, I'm speaking from the position of ANC, who joined hands with him, UDA, and Fort Kenya. What he pledged that he would actually grant us, he has lived to this. He has not been so deceitful, and I want to thank Moses Wetangula and Musalia for choosing to work with William Ruto, because even the people of Western are so happy that this time around, for the first time, as we usually vote, it's the first time the Western people have really benefited from the person they have supported, unlike before, where some of them you suffered so much, like Wetangula, I remember in the last parliament, he gave a lot of support to a particular friend, our neighbor. He actually demonized him. We recall what happened in the Senate. We recall also what happened here in the National Assembly. So thank you, Mr. President, for being faithful, for being honest, avoiding politics of deceit. Now to the President's speech. Madam Speaker, some people have been asking, even I've been hearing here, that the President's speech was so brief. But Mr. Speaker, our President seems to be a very brilliant man. We look at his speech of half an hour. Interestingly, it captured the aspirations of most Kenyans. So whoever is imagining that it was so brief, maybe the lengthy bit of it is now what we are trying to air on the floor of the House. What touched me most, Mr. Speaker, was the issue of loans, particularly to small-scale persons, the so-called hustlers. Mr. Speaker, I have a case, particularly for us, persons of Western. Most of the persons in Western have a phobia for loans. This is from the history the people experienced with the AFC loans. In the 1970s and 1980s, our people used to get loans from AFC, but most of them, these loans did not help them. Instead, when it came to repayment, because of the high interests, because when the loans came about, most of our people went for it, and what they were giving us surety was land. And most of them, because of the high interest rates, were defaulting, and most of our people lost land to AFC, to the government. So these loans have been so difficult for them to go for. When they had begun opening to the loans, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, the institutions that were giving these particular loans were also now asking for very high interest rates. So again, these people had developed some fear for the loans. But I'm very happy for the President to have actually talked about ensuring that our hustlers get money at lower interest rates. This will really boost the economy, because we know most of us are where we are because of actually accessing loans affordably. Mr. Speaker, even as our hustlers get this money, I would urge that the law, we design the law such that it does not actually, these interest rates do not change along the way. Because what happens, again, sometimes when you're collecting this money as a loan, along the way it changes. Banks are really fond of this, that you take a loan which tells you the interest rate is 13 per annum, but along the way it also changes, so it makes it so difficult for the hustlers to operate. Madam Speaker, we also know that when it comes to these small-scale persons, they pay taxes. You realize that currently we have so many taxes. We have taxes from the national government, we have taxes from the county governments. So, Mr. Speaker, I would that as we develop this, we also take care of the numerous taxes that are actually affecting the small-scale persons who will really go for these particular loans. And I want to thank the President because of his commitment to the hustlers, the so-called Fuliza, for which has been hurting our people most. Some action has already been taken. I'm also seeing some action is being taken by Cooperative Bank of Kenya, lowering some interests and appealing to persons to go for their loans at affordable rates. Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker, sorry. The other thing that also took me with a lot of interest is the NHIF, Madam Speaker. When you look at the NHIF, the way it operates, most of the people who are really paying a lot of money, in my opinion, is like the hustler. Because when it comes to me, who is earning, and most of this what these MPs are earning anyway, we are earning over $1 million. And what we are paying for over $1 million, what we are paying for NHIF is 1,700 every month. But the hustler is required to pay 500 shillings every month. When you look at the rate the hustler is paying, which is 500 shillings, you compare with what I'm paying, which is 1,700. It's actually the hustler who is paying a lot of money. Madam Speaker, this is a step in the right direction where we actually contribute to this depending on how much we are earning, so that the rich, the well-up persons like ourselves, can contribute more so as to carry these people who are really even relying on us to help them in terms of medication, to help us in so many things to do with their health. But Madam Speaker, something that I might also want this NHIF to do is currently what happens with the usual hustlers. They are restricted to only one medical facility. For example, me, I have employees whose families are in the rural and themselves work here. But Madam Speaker, they are restricted to only one facility. So now the question is, when the one I'm working with falls sick, you know, he has now to travel all the way to up country. And interestingly, now NHIF is, for example, looks like it's for the weller persons who have a lot of influence. When us fall sick, we go to any hospital as listed by our insurance companies. The NHIF normally follows us there to take care of our medical expenses. But how come when it comes to the common mwananchi, they are restricting them to a particular facility, which is only one, instead of having several of them, because this is what it is. It's a national, we're talking of universal health care to all Kenyans. If we restrict them to one facility, then we're also being restrictive to these particular persons. Madam Speaker, what is also of interest is the Hustler Fund. And I would argue that probably we have come to a stage where we have to harmonize these funds. You know, Weso Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund, all those that they come into one fund that can be useful to our people. Madam Speaker, our experience, or my experience, when it comes to group workings, it varies from one community to another community. I've realized that when it comes to Weso Fund, which goes to groups, the issue of formation of groups is a challenge somehow to most of our youth, to most of our women. I would argue that when it comes to the Hustler Fund, and together they merge with Weso Fund, we individualize these funds so that we're talking of individuals who take these funds and they become responsible by themselves. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to applaud the President for choosing most of the cabinet from here. The last government collapsed because of the so-called technocrats, CSS, who did not have the feel of the people who put them into government. They were so rigid in terms of their operations, but I want to thank the President for choosing persons who have tested politics, who know what politics is all about, persons who will open their doors to the sitting MPs to access them for the sake of the persons who have actually sent them to Parliament. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I register my thanks to the President's speech.
Thank you, Member for Malava. We now go to Member for Imwar Dikir, Honorable Johanna Ngeno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also getting this opportunity and to make a contribution towards the presidential speech. And first, before I make my contribution, Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate the President of the Republic of Kenya and his deputy for that election. I also wish to congratulate the Speaker and you yourself, Madam Speaker, for winning also the election in this House. I know the Senator, the Speaker, the current Speaker, was also the Senator of Bungoma. And I also wish to congratulate him for winning that particular seat also in that particular area. Madam Speaker, I also wish to thank the people of Murwadikir for finding it also good and useful to elect me back to this House for the third time, and also giving me an opportunity to serve in a new government. Remember, Madam Speaker, this is a new government, and serving in a new government is a very important opportunity where when the government is forming new issues and also partaking the matters of the country, it's also very important. Madam Speaker, I wish to also say that the speech of the President was a very important turning point in our country, Madam Speaker, and I think that is actually what I'm going to tack on. I used to state clearly that I support the speech of the President, which dealt with so many things, Madam Speaker. Number one of the issues which the President raised in this House is the fact that the intense election which we undertook on 9, Madam Speaker, had so many bruises in this country, and it was very intense competition, and there were a lot of issues which were being undertaken. And Madam Speaker, I used to say that the President mentioned that the country needs to come back now together and work together and move forward. Madam Speaker, the President dealt with the issue of the plan which he has for the country. The President mentioned especially the issue of the housing that he wants to bring as a very fundamental issue in his government. Madam Speaker, remember our country, most of the people in this country live on temporary housings. Most of the people in the country live on on slums. And Madam Speaker, I think it is a very important issue for the President to have put it as one of his undertakings to ensure that people live on good houses, and houses also which can be affordable. Madam Speaker, we pay rents. Several employees in this country, Madam Speaker, pay rents. Rents which, if it was to be accumulated, Madam Speaker, it would have bought houses at the time or the time those people are employed. Madam Speaker, I think it is a very good idea, and I wish to support the President and say, if it was possible, Madam Speaker, to even divert the rents or the house allowances which most of the employees are being paid in this country, Madam Speaker, towards buying these houses. Madam Speaker, I think at the end of retirement of these employees of government, people would have bought houses. Madam Speaker, also the President talked about the food sufficiency. Remember, currently as we speak, Madam Speaker, there are some areas which are ravaged by famine, drought, and all those, Madam Speaker. And I'm happy the President looked at the question of subsidizing fertilizer, the production, not even the end. Madam Speaker, even on the fuel issue, the President was also proper in stating that he wanted to remove the subsidies of the end products, so that we can, if we were to subsidize, we subsidize the production. And that will actually, in the end, bring down the price of those foodstuffs that we are using. Madam Speaker, the President also talked about the 50 billion money that is to go to the to his agenda of the Hustler Fund. Madam Speaker, this was his very major campaign tool while he was going around the country. And Madam Speaker, I believe these 50 billion, Madam Speaker, will go down in a big way to assist the hustlers who are down there, the women, the men, the youth, who will be accessing this particular fund, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the President also talked about the management of public resources. And I think, Madam Speaker, for a long time, our country has been losing a lot of funds, a lot of money, which are allocated to different ministries, Madam Speaker, because of wastages and because of mismanagement. And I think mismanagement and wastage is bigger than even corruption, Madam Speaker. So if the President was to put more scrutiny on the question of management of resources and management of, and actually the question of wastages, Madam Speaker, the country can come back to its vibrancy. Madam Speaker, I think also the President addressed the question of corruption. And by putting resources on the judiciary, Madam Speaker, I believe if judiciary is empowered and given its autonomy, Madam Speaker, they can deal with the corruption cases firmly and in a very fast way. Madam Speaker, remember, the arms of government that are meant to deal with corruption are the DCI, the EACC, and the courts. So, Madam Speaker, if these autonomous bodies are given proper funding by the government, Madam Speaker, then I believe that corruption will go down in this country. It is actually not the executive that deals with corruption. It is not even this parliament that deals with corruption, Madam Speaker. It is the DCI, the EACC, and the cases that ends up in the courts. Madam Speaker, if we allow the courts to do their work properly without twisting, without intimidation, Madam Speaker, I believe corruption will come down in this country. Madam Speaker, the President also talked about the debts, which has actually put this country down. As we speak, Madam Speaker, we are told of trillions of money which this country is paying every year. Actually, we are talking about doing a budget of collecting around 2 trillion in this country in the form of taxes, and we are paying around 1.5 trillion to the debts that the country has incurred, remaining with only around 600 or around 500 billion, Madam Speaker, which is not even enough for recurrent expenditure. That means, Madam Speaker, we are even borrowing to pay the recurrent expenditure, an undertaking, Madam Speaker, which is very wrong. So I believe the statements the President made about the debts incurred by the country is very correct, and we wish to support him in that undertaking, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the President also talked about the health. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that although the health, part of health has been devolved, Madam Speaker, we still believe, just like one member was stating here also, that health should not have been devolved, or if health was devolved, then parts of health should have remained with the national government so that it has proper management. Madam Speaker, remember, many people are admitted at hospitals. And these people don't even pay, or they cannot manage to pay the bills in those particular hospitals. Madam Speaker, the President talked about enhancing the NHIF so that it can easily pay for the people who are taken to hospital. Madam Speaker, there are so many people who are selling parcels of lands. People who are selling almost their fortunes because of hospital bills. And I believe if proper enhancement is made on the NHIF, Madam Speaker, then obviously these people will not be incurring those much losses. Madam Speaker, the President also talked about the Equalization Fund and the CDF. Madam Speaker, Equalization Fund has been in this House. It has been in the budgets. It is in the Constitution, but no particular, there was only one disbursement which was done by the government. And I believe this government will put more effort to ensure that those areas which had been marginalized for long will also benefit from the Equalization Fund. Madam Speaker, the question of CDF, Madam Speaker, has been stated majorly by most of the members, is that we need to align it with the Constitution so that the CDF can continue helping the people in our areas. Madam Speaker, remember now schools have been opened and parents are complaining of the fees because there is no CDF at the moment, no dispersal of CDF. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to support the speech by the President, and also I wish to congratulate members who have been appointed to the CSS positions, and we are waiting to pass them here, scrutinize and pass them here. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Next is member for Game, but before even he starts, I just want to assure members that we are doing well and we'll have sufficient time even in the afternoon for those who don't get time now. So we appreciate your interest. And we do still have at least 6 or 7 members who can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Allow me to congratulate you